Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is a special day. We had a big excitement yesterday. We did the clothing sale with Hannah. Well, it wasn't actually, it ended up being a giveaway, and it was actually pretty fabulous. So I'm starting the announcements. I know you all are surprised. We are still small but mighty. We had 60 volunteer hours just for members of the church between Friday and Saturday. We served 65 families and gave out 1,500 pieces of clothing. And I want to acknowledge, and most of you are here, who helped. 3 Carols: Carol Cron, Carol Corman, Carol Monahan, Ruth Reagan, Gloria Pavone, Jack and Beth Roth, Cheryl and Sam Favor, Sharon and Chris Roof. Eleanor came over and said, oh, there's nothing for me to do, but she came and kept us company, and Terry Bachnight. So we, again, small, but boy, do we present well. Are there any other announcements that you'd like to share? Yes, Cheryl.
You missed the most important person we helped from this church, and that's you.
Oh.
You gave more hours than anybody else, so congratulations to you.
Thank you, thank you. And anybody who, please tell me about interest in soup. So should we make as much? Should we scale back? Are there certain types that you want? Should we do it as a fundraiser or no? Inquiring minds want to know. Blessing box needs continuing. It's being used well. Please continue to keep that in. And we do still have a little bit of barbecue in the freezer, I do believe. Okay. Can you stand and join me in the call to worship? No? It says welcome and announcement. Oh, prelude. I'm sorry, we're preluding. Sit down. Love ya. Now, would everybody like to stand and do the call to worship with me? Come away from ordinary life for a while to sit and learn of God's ways. In God's presence, we are not lonely, for there is compassion and healing power. In Christ's presence, none go hungry, but all find bread for body and soul. Christ is for us the bread of life and bids us feed our neighbor. Miracles of sharing are inspired by small gifts, spontaneously offered without pretense or guile. We want to experience the miracles of Christ, beginning with our own attitudes and actions. Then let Jesus lead you to the source of life and receive the invitation to drink deeply from life-sustaining water and the bread of life. With our sisters and brothers, we seek God's blessing. Gracious God, giving God, you call us to live out our faith in ways that honor you and bless our neighbors. And we recognize that worship is an essential part of our faith journey. We believe that what we do here in worship does shape our daily witness to Jesus, whose disciples we profess to be. We know that our faith is most visible when we live by your kingdom values of love, justice, and peace. And so this morning, we pray that in our worship, the unfailing treasures of your kingdom will shape and reshape our hearts, and that our discipleship will be clear in our worship, our witness, and our service this day and the week to come. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you so much, Sharon and Richard. That is just absolutely fantastic and lovely, and I always enjoy listening to you. Our guest speaker today is Lori Scheinbold. She's the executive director of the Pantry. So all of my Bible verses that we're quoting have all to do with feeding of the hungry. So the first reading is Isaiah 58, 7-10. Share your food with everyone who is hungry. Share your home with the poor and homeless. Give clothes to those in need. Don't turn away your relatives. Then your light will shine like the dawning sun, and you will quickly be healed. Matthew 14, 13-18, Jesus feeding the 5,000. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "But we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me." The last reading is Matthew 25, 34-40. It is the New International Version. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you?" The king replied, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." So Lori's the executive director of the Hannah Pantry. She came here before COVID, talked to the board, and hooked me when she was talking about the needs in the community, which totally freaked me out that, I always knew there was hunger, but you mean there's hunger here, like right here in my neighborhood. That's like very weird. So Witness has been very involved with the pantry. I now help serve on the board over there. We had the clothing sale yesterday. You can see what the church looked like then. It doesn't look like that now. We did a fabulous job cleaning up, and by we, I mean everybody else, because cleaning is not my favorite thing. And I lost my train of thought. It's a beautiful thing. But anyway, Lori's going to tell you stories all about the pantry, all the good that it does, and help you understand better than I could, because she won't lose her place.
I can't guarantee that I'm not going to lose my place, so that's for sure. But I am going to keep track of my time because I could stand here and talk for hours. So I will make sure that I'm not doing that. So first, I can't thank you all enough for having me here and for being part of Hannah's Pantry and the amazing little place that we've built. A little about me, I actually grew up down the street where the colors are green and white. But when my husband and I got married, we chose to build our house here in Susquehanna Township because we both wanted our children to have a diverse community that they grew up in. And this was the place. So both of my kids have graduated from Susquehanna Township, and I couldn't be more proud of them. They're both in college and doing wonderful. So this place has a little special place in my heart for that reason, too. I love the connections that I personally have here at Ridgeway. Pastor Liz and I and Sharon, wherever she went, our kids grew up together. Oh, she's in the back. Hi, Sharon. Our kids all grew up together, and so my start with the community really started as the PTO, helping in the classrooms with the students and the teachers to build our community as they grew up. So Sharon and I, yesterday, Sharon and I was reminiscing of all of the Christmas sales that we used to have. We'd set up the Christmas tree shop, and Sharon was all over the place, and that kind of looked like that yesterday. So we fast forward to closer to this time. My kids were here, and my husband used to always tease me because I have a master's in geography, believe it or not. And so it was important to me that I raised my kiddos, so I actually was a stay-at-home mom with my master's in geography, which will come up in our conversation a little later, why that was important. But I then got involved with the musicals, and I helped produce the musicals at the high school and helped feed the kids. One of my big things was, these kids are here for hours on end, and how are they going to eat before they practice to go on for the musical? So Miss Laurie's mac and cheese became a famous thing for a couple years, that I would make pans and pans of mac and cheese to feed the kids, and then we'd get fried chicken from Giant. So I'm a feeder at heart too. So kids, geography, food, all these things were super important to me. So when it became time for me to kind of move on, I became the executive director of the Hannah Education Foundation. So that tied a lot of my PTO connections, a lot of my student connections all together. And the mission of the foundation is to enrich the students, and provide enrichment activities for the students at the school. So all they focused on was helping the students, which was very important. And that is when my connection came directly over here to Ridgeway. We had started working very closely with, at that point, the new superintendent, Dr. Tamara Willis, and it was becoming evident in the classrooms that times were sort of changing for the district. Susquehanna Township and the entire community had a rich history of, fairly successful families, and the students, they weren't struggling, but the free and reduced lunch rate, so meaning the number of families whose income qualified them to get a free lunch at the school, had risen to nearly 60% in the schools. So that means that, there's nearly 60% of the families that had kiddos over there were living close to or living in poverty. And when you look at the students who are in the classrooms, they were hungry. There were lots of hungry kids, and they connected with an organization called Communities in Schools, which is what brought me here to Ridgeway to talk to the community. And there was so much data that showed that kids who are hungry, they're not going to be great learners. They're worried about food. Their bellies are hungry. They don't feel good. And so the academics and the behavior in the classrooms started to become evident, and they started to talk to these kids, and they realized the kids were hungry. Mom and dad weren't giving them breakfast on the way out the door. Mom and dad worked, 2 different shifts. Mom and dad weren't home. So not only were these kids hungry, but they also were realizing that there was a lot of trauma at home. Like, there were kids in situations that people would never dream of. Like, our kids, we would never dream of this. Mom's in jail. Kiddo lives with grandma. Mom works 3 jobs. They never even see dad because he's got to work constantly just to provide kids, food at home. So there was situations that we can't fathom. Nobody was sitting at home reading books with their kids before they went to bed. Nobody was, cooking and having a home-cooked meal. So it was really a change in the approach that the educators were having to have in the schools. So I spoke to you all and the board about this need, and it was, it's heartbreaking to think that kids are hungry in this day and age that we live in. So the board here was very alarmed. Nancy was there, and we started working with Ridgeway to address some of the needs that the foundation had at that point. That was right before COVID, and the foundation had made a decision to invest in this Communities in Schools project. So they helped put an educator, really, a site coordinator in the buildings. And the job of this individual was to find those students that were in trauma or having some issues and make a connection with them, find out what's going on at home so they could help that. And a lot of it came down to food. So at the very same time, there was a food pantry here, which I'm sure many of you knew about, called the Adopt a Family Program. It was over at Thomas Holtzman Elementary School, and it was a community food pantry. And they served families in the cafeteria. So I don't know how many of you remember the cafeteria at Holtzman, but it's glass. You could see right in there. So it wasn't very private. There wasn't a lot of privacy over there for folks that were getting food. And it was very labor intensive. The volunteers had to unload food from cars and walk it ever into the school, and it just was a big job. But they did that for 20 years, and it was kind of evident to all of them that they wanted to spend more time with their grandkids, and so they decided to retire. So at this crossroads, I'm hearing the only food pantry that exists for the township is retiring. We've got all this need. So the foundation board decided to to take over the administrative responsibility of that pantry. It became Hannah's Pantry. We worked with the school to find a more appropriate place for deliveries, so we moved it over here to the high school where there's a dock, so a truck from the food bank can actually deliver the food. It was nice and private back there because there's no windows, so we could actually have people come in and have a little discretion. So Hannah's Pantry was born in September of 2019. So at that point, it was pretty cool because the members could come in and, excuse me, take their grocery cart, and we were a choice pantry. So they would come inside to the pantry. We built a little barn, cleared out the storage area, and they could shop and get items for their family. So they could get what their family needed. That worked great. We were super excited. We had lots of people involved, and we were just getting to the point where we were like turning it into My Plate so they could get a nutritious, well-rounded grocery assessment. And then COVID hit. So we literally pivoted overnight from an indoor shopping to an outdoor distribution, and we have never gone back inside since. So at that point, before COVID, if we had 40 families come in and go grocery shopping, that was a pretty exciting day. That was fantastic. When COVID hit, we went outside that Saturday, so it was March 14th, 2020. I remember it vividly because I was in Dr. Willis, the superintendent's office, with her and the food services director, and my team at the pantry just took all the food, loaded it in grocery carts, put it on the dock, and I was more concerned, as everybody else, how are we going to feed the kids on Monday? School shut down. How are those kids whose families don't provide dinner going to provide lunch for them? How are they going to have breakfast? So Hannah's Pantry, with the help of lots of folks, put together 600 lunches, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of the following week. And we bagged them up, and we just used the communications of the school to say, hey, if you need lunch, drive on over to the high school. We'll do a drive-by. We'll give you lunches for the week. And by Wednesday, they got a delivery from food services, and food services sort of picked up the lunches, and so the school was able to provide it. But we had a small but mighty crew like yourself, and we were able to get 1,800 lunches put together for families, and they were all picked up, and they all went home. So that sort of started our connection with the schools more intensely. So we continued that idea, and we thought, well, if we're going to provide food for families, we should do it in a way that makes sense. We were all feeders, like I said, so we started coming up with this idea, which sticks to today, that we should put food together that makes sense. So we'd come up with a theme. So we'd say, well, maybe this week we'll do Italian. We'll do spaghetti sauce, we'll do noodles, we'll do some canned vegetables and some fruit. And we said, well, what if they don't know what to do with all of these foods? So we started giving them recipes. So we started a newsletter on the front. So we would give information about what's going on in the community, a little health tip, and some other information for them. And then on the back, we would put recipes to tell them what to do with the food we're giving them. So that started out small, and that continues through today too. So, but we would bag the food up because obviously people are coming through, bag or box food. So what happened was people were incredibly generous, just incredibly generous. We'd have families coming through, and we started to get to know these people. You know, all the stories are different. Mom lost their job, dad lost their job. They, you know, the company shut down for a while, and they would say, "We're so appreciative of this help. It's the most important thing that's happening right now. But my family is Muslim, and we can't eat beef." Or my family, you know, we can't eat pork, or my kids don't like that. So we thought it was fantastic that we were giving them food, but if it's not food that makes sense for that family, then what's the point? If they can't eat it, they can't use it. So they started donating the food back, which turned us into where we are today. So we are a very, very unique pantry in the sense that we are the most diverse school district in the state over there. Believe it or not, the community you live in. We're also, I think we're 15th in the nation. So if you look across the country, this little microcosm that we live in is the 15th most diverse school district in the country. It's pretty cool. So that has led us to where we are today, which is an outdoor drive-through food pantry with choice options. So what that means is we went from a little tiny pantry that served 40 families that could pick their own foods in a grocery store to an outdoor distribution who yesterday, in 2 hours' time, 2.5, we had almost 280 families go through our line and stop at about 15 different stations and pick the foods that they want. It was sort of cultivated to go around. It was Taco Week yesterday. So they got to stop at stations and choose whether they wanted canned beef or dried beans or canned chicken or split peas, I think was the other option yesterday. So instead of just giving them a bag with what we thought should be a taco dinner, they could choose. So it's amazing. If you've ever been over here on a Saturday, we fill the entire parking lot at the high school. And we have folks, they come in, they park in the parking lot. We have volunteers who direct the traffic there. So if anybody has ever wanted to be a traffic police officer, please let me know. I'm happy to put you to work. We'll give you a fluorescent vest and you can help direct traffic out there. But we get them all lined up and then they get registered. So being that diverse community, we have to know what foods to offer those families. So they get registered and they fill out some paperwork. We want to know what food they can eat, what food they can't eat. We want to know what languages they're speaking at home because the district only captures one language, so it's the primary language. We have learned that some of the families that are coming over from Pakistan, they speak 4 languages in their household every day just to keep it up because that's the culture over there is there's languages spoken everywhere. So we know what languages are spoken at home, so we know which registration forms to give them, but more importantly, we know what food to give them. So when they register, we create a placard, we call it. So it's a laminated 8.5 by 11 piece of paper that goes on their windshield. It tells us their family size. It's A, B, C, or D. A family of 1 to 2 people is an A, 3 to 4 is a B, 5 to 6 is a C, and if they have 7 or more people in their household, they're a D. So what that does is we'll put that placard on the windshield, but if they don't eat beef, guess what? They get a little sign that says no cow. If they don't eat pork, they get a little part on their sign that says no pig. If they're vegetarian, they get a little vegetarian sign, and so on. So I think we're up to 43 different iterations of the cards based on family size and food and things like that. So that allows our volunteers who might be at that station that I told you about that had canned beef and dried beans and canned chicken. So if they see a family that pulls up that is vegetarian, they're not even going to offer them the canned beef and the canned chicken. They're obviously going to know that if they're going to take anything at all, it's from that. It's one of the dried beans. So it keeps us efficient over there, and it keeps it respectful to the families that are coming because there are so many people that are asking for help for the very first time in their life, and it's not something easy to do. And it's also semi-public. I mean, you're coming to a place where you're asking somebody else for help, a stranger, and you don't know how you're going to be perceived. So we try to create a very, very warm and welcoming environment. Our volunteers are very happy and friendly. They're happy to be there. They're dedicated. And it's sort of the first time in my life that I've ever worked with a group of people that are on a board that actually put in the work. They actually come to the distributions. They actually are there because they want to be there. Nancy has stepped up and is our outreach chair on our board, and it's a delight for me because I don't have to beg people to come and participate, I beg. She does. She does a great job at it, too. So it's a very, very special little place that we've created over there, and we can't thank you all enough for the support that you give us financially. You have given us donations for a sign. So there is a beautiful sign that is outside of our shed over there that came from you folks. And we have it out there. It's professional looking. It's nice. And we put the dates that the pantry's open on it. We have given donations from the Christmas Eve services that go directly to food because the food costs have changed dramatically. During COVID, we could get milk and eggs for free, which is great. We have lots of grants that come from the food bank, but since COVID's kind of gone by the wayside, so has all of the support that they've gotten from the government. So I told you we have 4 different family sizes, A, B, C, D. If you can imagine, all of our numbers and how we prepare things are based on that. So we expect about 75 A's, about 100 B's and C's, and about 30 D's to come. And we give each of those a half gallon of milk. So an A gets 1/2 gallon of milk, B2, C3, and a D gets 4, so 2 gallons. That costs us about $1,300. Every Saturday we're open 2 Saturdays a month from 10 to 12. So we also pay $1 a dozen for eggs. So we need 500 dozen eggs to make the math work out, to give everybody enough for their families. So we're close to $4,500 a month just for milk and eggs. So our little budget from our little tiny pantry that started with a $5,000 check from the original one, we were up to what we thought was astronomical. We had an $80,000 budget last year. This year, our budget is $180,000. Coupled with the increase in families that we've had, we budgeted for a 20% increase in families from last year. We had a 50% increase in families. So in terms of the number of people that are asking for help and the amount of food that we need to provide and the cut in funding that we've had all over the place, it's pretty crazy. And just the sheer volume going from 40 families, a distribution, to, over 300. So I told you we had 200, almost 280 yesterday. We're going to serve another probably 50 or 60 families on Tuesday. So those numbers combined are what we look at a distribution. So families who work on Saturdays, lots of people in the medical community can't come because they're at work, or in the food industry. So we make reservations on Tuesdays for those that can't attend on Saturday. So if I would compare that 40 people from before COVID to what we'll be done with after we serve people on Tuesday, we'll be close to 325 families in a 4-day period. So like Nancy said, it's incredible to think that looking around, at your neighbors in your neighborhood, that there are lots of people that are struggling right now. And we're just so thankful that we're here and we've got a community of support that can help us feed these families. And more importantly, feed those kiddos. We also have been doing a lot more work with the school itself. When they have a half day for professional development, those kids don't get lunch before they go home. So the pantry has been working very closely to make sure those kids have a hearty snack to go home with. So we provide breakfast bars or protein bars and things like that the kids can grab on their way out the door. So as they're going home and getting on the bus, they're taking something with them. So we're also working with the special ed classrooms. They have different needs. Special ed kids that are autistic and things like that, they're motivated, a lot of them, by food. So, and edible reinforcements. I mean, it's an interesting a time because almost 20% of the incoming kindergarten class over there this year is in the special ed department. So times are changing all over the place. So we are also trying to support those teachers and help that classroom and those kids become successful. So we're providing snacks for them too. I feel like I'm talking hours here too, so let me check on my time. I am, very good. Okay. So, what did you say? Yes, so fast forward to where we are today. Your support in helping us provide food in terms of literally the food that's up here and physical food. Every pancake breakfast that you hold, we do that on the same day that we provide diapers. We provide 5,000 diapers to our babies once a month. Your pancake breakfast here is so special because the families can't wait to come over and get food. So we're providing food for them to go home, but you're providing actual physical food for them to have and eat at home. And it's very cool to us when they come on the wrong Saturday and said, pancakes today, right? They're excited. We say, sorry, not today, but the next week. But they're asking about it, and they expect it, and they want. So it's something pretty cool. And there's no other pantry like us. There's no other pantry in the area that has a connection with a church across the street that provides actual food to go, that has the space to provide clothes. Because so often people that are in need of food are also in need of housing or shelter and clothes. And this new arm that we've put out here, we're calling it the Closet at Hannah's Pantry, at Ridgeway. It's just, there's nobody else doing what we're doing. And I just can't thank you all enough for helping us create this little community of need that we're so tiny, but we're making a huge impact. We really, really are. And having the space to sort of things here allows us to do things like when the social worker calls and says, hey, I have a family that just moved into the neighborhood. They don't have any clothes for the kids. They have 4 kids. Can you help us with food, first of all? I'll deliver it. And can you help us get some clothes for the kiddo? And we can call Nancy and get the clothes that we need. Or Nancy decides to pick up socks at Costco because they're on sale. And so when the teacher called me last week and said, I have a kiddo that doesn't have any socks. He's got sneakers on. Do you have any socks? Or Nancy says, hey, I picked up these pots and pans. Do you think you could use them? And I said, yeah, we just had a family who moved to somewhere else, and they literally have nothing to cook on. So I'll grab the pots and pans and go. So the needs that we have are so varied, and I just can't wait to see where we can go with this. Hannah's Pantry is proud to be its own 501c3 now. We are not part of the foundation anymore. We grew too big, way outside of the mission of theirs, which was to enrich the activities of students. So we are here to do what we need to do to meet the needs of the community, not just the school. And I will leave you with this. My master's in geography comes in handy because we have tight spaces over there. And geography is spatial relationships, not where things are, in terms of just cities and things like that, but spatial relationships. So ask Nancy, I can run a pallet jack like nobody else. I can get things in spaces where they go. I can work with any space we got, especially when we have to get things into our 10 by 10 walk-in refrigerator and freezer. So if you need somebody to run a pallet jack, just give me a call. I can get things or places, and I'm great at Tetris. So thank you for listening to me ramble on. I will be here afterwards to chat because, like I said, I could talk for hours, as you can see. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your efforts, and I can't wait to see what we do more. What'd you say?
And the partnership.
And our partnership, absolutely. Thank you.
I want to do a little summary here. That's what the reading is in the bulletin. It's by Richard Rohr, who is a Franciscan monk, and it's called Creating a Community of Compassion, which I think is exactly what we're doing here at Ridgeway. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick, Matthew 14:14. The gospel passage is quite good and delightful because it tells us very directly what God is about. Jesus is all about meeting immediate needs right here, right now. There's no mention of heaven at all. It seems we miss the point of what Christian religion should be about, but we see how the disciples themselves miss the point. Tell them to go to the village and take care of themselves. But Jesus does not leave people on their own. Look at the setting. Jesus is tired. The gospel begins with him withdrawing to a deserted place to be by himself. Sure enough, the crowds follow after him. But he doesn't get angry or send them away. He recognizes the situation and moves to deal with it. Then the passage goes further and states, his heart was moved with pity, Matthew 14:14. If Jesus is our image of God, then we know God has feelings for human pain, human need, and even basic human hunger. The gospel records that he cured the sick, so we know that God is also about healing, what today we call healthcare. Sometimes we don't even believe everyone deserves that either. Jesus says there is no need for them to go away. We will feed them, Matthew 14:16. The point in all the healing stories of the gospel is not simply that Jesus can work miracles. It is not for us to be astounded that Jesus can turn 5 loaves and 2 fish into enough for 5,000 people, not counting women and children. That's pretty amazing, and I wish we could do it ourselves. But what Jesus does quite simply is feed people's immediate needs. He doesn't talk to them about spiritual things, heavenly things, or churchy things. He doesn't give a sermon about going to church. He does not tell us what things we're supposed to be upset about today. He knows that we can't talk about spiritual things until we take away people's immediate physical hunger. When so much of the world is living at a mere survival level, how can we possibly talk about spiritual things? The important thing that God seems to want to be doing in history is to create a community of compassion where people care about one another. It's not only the feeding that matters to us, it's also the caring for other people's hungers and needs. Jesus never once talked about attending church services, but he talked constantly about healing the sick and feeding the hungry. That is what it seems to mean to be a follower of Christ. Morning prayers. May God bless and keep you. May the Lord shine his light upon you and give you peace. Please go out into the world, be Christ's hands and feet. Amen.